Hello and welcome to your trades. The week ahead, what a week it's been. Flat, but it's Friday, which pretty much poured cold water over all that we collected over the week.
Yeah, and hard-fought battle really for the gains before losing all of them. And I think almost everything participated in Friday's session, which is probably a bit of a worry.
Oh yes, for Friday though, we managed to close well below the 6,300 mark. In fact, we've retraced back all the way to those Jan 2nd levels for the Nifty, 62, 66, and it's been a flat close over the week itself. It was all because of Friday that you're seeing that huge cash down coming in. What really stuck out like a sore thumb was definitely Ranbaxy. Over the week, the stock managed to lose about 17%, and on Friday itself, we saw levels of as low, or rather cuts as deep as 19% coming in intraday, and a gap down started that. The other losers, they included the likes of Kotak Bank, Coal India, BOB, Ambuja Cements, as well as BHEL, which shaved off 4%. The gainers, largely some of the private banking lot and IT names. So HCL Technologies, ICICI Bank, you had Axis Bank, Wipro, which held out by about almost 4%, as was the case with Sun Pharma, and metals as well did okay. So Hindalco was a gainer.
Mid caps, and there were lots of newsmakers as well as movers in the session. So, for example, an ABG Shipyard had a fantastic week going into Thursday and Friday. So 20% kind of gains coming in for that stock. Stocks like PVR, stocks like Biocon had volatile weeks. PVR did very well, but stocks like Biocon or an Aurobindo Pharma, splendid week for most part. And then the last couple of days, some correction that came in for these stocks. So Aurobindo still ending up close to 9% in the session. Couple of result disappointments included a KPIT Technologies, which corrected with a vengeance really. So ending the week almost 12.5%, and a large portion of the fall happening in the last couple of trading sessions. So result boys essentially there, I mean, PAT down 8.8%, and I think that disappointed the street because it wasn't as per expectations. Maybe a stock like Mastech or a Supreme Industries, 12% down for a Supreme Industries after the result disappointment. Mastech did okay on the results, and which is why that 6% kind of a gain. So all in all, very stock-specific moves that happen with companies like Mastech, for example, much better than estimated, and which is why a 6% uptick where most of the other IT names had a problem. Supreme Industries corrected quite a bit, 6% downtick in PAT, and that disappointed despite a 20% uptick in sales. So selectively, stocks came out with news and got rewarded, but a lot of them got punished as well. The question really remains, what do we do next week? And joining us to speak about that today on the fundamental end is Avinash Kurakshekhar, head of research at Mintdirect.com, and of course on the technicals and charts is Sandeep Wagle. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining in, both of you. Sandeep, a quick word on the Nifty and the fall that we had on Friday. Do you think it can extend into Monday and Tuesday?
Absolutely, Neeraj. I think I was personally disappointed the way it went up to 63.60 at one point in time. I felt it will go all the way to 64.50, test the prior high or make even a new high for that matter. But that did not happen. 63.60, 63.55 to be precise, has been a very strong resistance. And if you ask me whether it can fall more, certainly it can, the way the pattern has shaped out, way the momentum indicators are suggesting. I would expect 80 to 100 points fall even from the current level. So from a 62, 60, 70 close on Friday, I would talk of a 61.50, 61.60, and the prior swing low is somewhere around 61.40. So hopefully that does not break, or if it breaks, then we can even go down to 60.80 or so. But as of now, I would restrict myself for a target of another 100 points.
Well, quite clearly, the one which really stuck out like a sore thumb, like we were just talking about, has got to be Ranbaxy.
Avinash, comment on this one. Is all the pain in the price, or the news is such a big dampener that the stock could actually slide further from where we have been already?
I think, Neeraj, we should be seeing further damage in the days to come. My sense is, I think, on the kind of fixed costs which possibly would be reported in the fourth quarter, I think in this quarter the impact of this development may not be factored in. But clearly, I think looking at the fact that US FDA has now put a dampener to the fourth plant, I think makes me feel that clearly, I think in terms of the exceptional kind of charges, the damages, it could be significantly high. And more importantly, now the markets would definitely feel panicky that year after, if any further negative news flow comes out, I think the stock could further crack. My personal assessment is, say, around 275 to 300 odd. I think probably that would be a level where, some sort of stability could come in the counter. Most of the institutions and most of the larger players would actually be clearly negative on the stock. And clearly, if you look at a Lupin or a Sun Pharma, I think there is better stability in these companies, and that goes definitely, as a negative for Ranbaxy.
Sandeep, how much more downside do you foresee for Ranbaxy?
Well, Aisha, very honestly, it has gone much lower than what I felt it would go, because when the swing low of around 435, 440 was broken, I had a sell in it. But frankly, I did not expect this kind of a target. This has obviously come in the wake of the news, which has been very, very negative. And how much more down it can go to 280, 270, 260. The prior swing low is 260. So probably it can test that. But whether I'll sell it now, that remains a question. I'm not that comfortable. If I have sold it before, I will wait for lower levels to buy it back. But I definitely cannot create a fresh trade setup because the risk to reward will not match.
The other pharma newsmakers were Aurobindo, for example, which is going to acquire the operations of Actavis in 7 countries. The deal with Actavis is worth 30 million euros, and the stock ending the week 9% higher, with analysts saying that margins will increase on shifting manufacturing to India. Biocon, results below estimates. That's the other stock in the pharma space. Results were way below estimates. Sales were up 10% at 700 crores, and biopharma revenues were up close to 4%. But margins, 24% holding out. Somehow it didn't please the street at all, and which is why you saw the kind of movement that we saw in Biocon in the session. And of course, Torrent Pharma was the other one, wherein if you look at the Q3 highlights for Torrent Pharma, sales were up 29%, a whopping 41% uptick in PAT, and which is why the stock ended the week 13%. 2 or 3 mid-sized pharma names, Avinash, if you had to choose one out of these 3.
I think clearly, I think Biocon, Neeraj, I would definitely put my bet, because clearly, the management clearly indicated that, R&D expense was one of the key reasons why margins were under pressure, and I think they would be launching the new cancer drug in the month of February. My guess is, I think after a certain amount of consolidation, the stock definitely could be poised to go further up, especially on the hope that, the cancer drug actually generates good amount of revenue as well as margins. Definitely, I think numbers were slightly disappointing, but going forward over the next 2 to 3 quarters, I would presume that Biocon presents a good opportunity, and one could see comfortably a 15-16% upside.
The other newsmakers, of course, were L&T, a mixed bag of earnings, so to speak. But yes, the markets definitely gave L&T a thumbs up. Not just that, you had Kotak Mahindra Bank as well, which came out with their earnings. And this stock saw a fair amount of disappointment considering the earnings were below estimates. Sandeep, very quickly, what do you foresee on the charts for Kotak Bank as well as L&T now?
Well, Kotak Bank, Aisha, I still feel there is some more downside. The weekly charts have indicated a fresh breakdown, and at the level of 684, I would talk of a 650, 655 target. Now this is the view for the next couple of weeks. L&T, I was actually bullish till yesterday, but the way the pattern has panned out till on Friday, I think it will come down to 960, 970, where it could be a good buy. And the upside range is 1030, 1035, the weekly high. So I don't see that being broken. So 960, 1035 is the range for L&T.
But Avinash, the other 2 mid-cap names which really held out and caught everyone's fancy this week were Biocon as well as Aurobindo Pharma. Do you like any of these stories?
I think, as earlier mentioned, Aisha, I think we are positive on Biocon, but even Aurobindo Pharma, the kind of acquisition they have done, I think they have actually bought a reasonably good company, for a decent valuation of almost 30 million. So clearly, I think the history of this company of managing, companies by taking them out and turning them around is pretty good. So my sense is, I think over the next couple of quarters, the kind of earnings traction you could see, I think definitely looks interesting and quite strong. Clearly, I think Aurobindo is now in the higher end of the orbit of the price range. But if one takes a 6 to 12 month view, I would say that even from these levels, a 15-16% upside is possible. So both Aurobindo and Biocon, I think, would continue to do well. I think on a fundamental perspective, Aurobindo first and second Biocon.
Sandeep, I want to come to you on the Bank Nifty, considering that plummeted a fair bit on Friday. What's the case now for what happens next week, considering its policy as well?
Aisha, some more downside is what I foresee. Some more downside to the tune of 100 to 150 points. I don't see a crash of some 4-5%. I think at that level some support will come in. 100 points lower, 100 points higher, 150 points higher, 10,850, 900 and 11,100 is the range I see the Bank Nifty moving in. But the bias as of now is on the downside.
Sandeep, would you trade a Hero, HUL or a Bharti at all Monday morning?
Would avoid. Don't have a very clear view, though it has not fallen in this kind of a market, specifically Bharti. But to go long, I am not getting any pattern or volume built up, so I would avoid.
Okay, a couple of other numbers include a Hero MotoCorp and Maruti from the auto space. So Hero Moto, the revenues are seen up 12% at around 6,900 crores. More importantly, 7% volume growth may boost profits by 25% to 610 crores. So that's one auto name to watch out for. As well as Maruti is the other one, wherein sales are seen up 2%, but because of the weak yen, the PAT is expected to rise over 40% to 715 crores. So just watch out for Maruti, the bottom line number and the margin number, because it's expected that margins may get impacted because of the increased discount. So these are a couple of auto names to watch out for as well. Of course, Avinash, just wondering, between a Bharti, a Hero and a Maruti, anything that you are watching out for?
I think possibly, Dheeraj, I think Maruti could possibly surprise, and I would say that, if you look at the longer term business model and the kind of competitive strengthening which this company enjoys, I would say that Maruti definitely would be worth a look. I think markets would definitely be pleasantly surprised if, on the currency side and more importantly then on the volume side, the management gives some sort of commentary. Although the rate cut may not happen this week, I think clearly at least in the coming few months, once the rate cut does happen, I think a company like Maruti would definitely benefit, because we would see a big kicker into volume growth becoming positive for the passenger car market.
Well, not just that, metals too would be in focus as they have been last week. Sesa Sterlite, JSPL too slated to come out with their earnings. But back to focusing on what trades you should execute. So Sandeep, you go first. What trading ideas do you have for our viewers?
Aisha, I would go with a sell in a Godrej Industries, which is given a breakdown on Friday. I would sell it with a stop loss of 274, target of 255. The second call is a sell in a JP Associates, stop loss of 49, target of 41. And I would go with a buy in a pharma stock, a Divi's Lab, stop loss of 1295, target of 1378.
Okay, thanks to those, Sandeep. Avinash, one top mid-cap idea.
I think I would be positive on DB Corp, Neeraj. I think very strong numbers in the third quarter, backed by good top line growth and as well as EBITDA margin expansion. I think the key triggers for this stock would be, going forward, the election kind of rub off, especially, in the western states, especially Jharkhand, Haryana, Maharashtra, which possibly could help them in FY15. Also, the Patna edition should do well. I think they had a very successful launch. And in terms of valuations, this company has always commanded premium valuations for this kind of robust model they have. The kind of leadership they enjoy in the Hindi newspaper segment, I think my sense is probably a price target of 375, 380 over the next 6 to 8 months.